Hi, everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek. And what in the world did I just read? It was this. As you can see, number 33 in the TNG numbered series, Balance of Power. And from looking at this cover, and even from reading this very short cover blurb, Captain Picard must keep a superweapon out of enemy hands. Balance of power. I was expecting maybe something else, but what I got was different and it was fun, and I was exceptionally pleased. But they did not do credit to our good friend Will Wheaton in including him on this cover, because this was a Wesley Crusher novel, totally. And why the artist chose Picard and Mr. LaForge here for the cover, I do not know. But let's read what it says on the back, I guess, and we'll determine from there if they give any more information about that. When a famous Federation scientist dies, his son puts his inventions up for sale to the highest bidder, whether Federation, Klingon, Romulan, or Cardassian. Among the items at auction are medical devices, engineering advances, and a photon pulse cannon capable of punching through a starship's shields with a single shot. Meanwhile, at the Academy, Wesley Crusher comes to the aid of his best friend and finds himself kidnapped by the outlaw Ferengi, bent on controlling the universe through commerce. Okay. When they also set their sights on the photon cannon, Captain Picard must find a way to save the Starship Enterprise and the Federation from the deadliest weapon ever known, with every race in the galaxy aligned against him. Alright, look. I'm pretty sure it's not how you spell cannon, right? Look at that. You guys see that? That's not the right canon. And they say it again right there, too. Anyway, I guess if I would have read the back, I would have known that this is a Wesley Crusher adventure. But I don't know. I guess they make it seem like the stakes of the book are a lot higher than what they really are. And for me, this was definitely more of like a funny book than anything else. It was very funny. It had a lot of kind of maybe out of character moments, or maybe characters that were taken out of their element, so were acting strange or out of character, and in a funny way. But there was a lot of instances of people put into situations maybe they weren't used to, which led to some funny moments. Data in particular was running a humor program during this book, which was one of the very funny part of the book as well. So definitely got a lot of laughs. Wasn't what I was expecting going in. Not an action book, not even a big like kind of sci-fi book at all either. It was kind of more of like a caper, So Wesley is kidnapped and he's kind of like forced and coerced into this caper. There's this grand auction at this fantastic hotel, with like all these different guests coming in. So it kind of reminded me of some kind of like old movie or some kind of caper like that, where somebody's trying to pull off some kind of heist or some big thing, So definitely it's different. It's a lot different than kind of any other Trek book that I've read, I would say for sure. But it was very funny, and it kept me engaged, and I was able to, let's get down to the details. Started it on the 11th and finished it probably about an hour ago. And this was published in 1995, 296 pages, and written by Dafydd Hugh, who was born, I think, David Friedman. And I wondered if he was somehow related to Michael Jan Friedman. Maybe not. I don't know. He has written a few other Star Trek books. Mostly it looks like Deep Space Nine stuff. And makes sense because in this book, this is a very Ferengi centered and Wesley Crusher centered book. So it would have been much more apt of a cover for like Wesley Crusher maybe here, and then some like some Ferengi guy right there. And then people would have known what they're getting in for. Because Geordi and Picard, they play small parts in this, but that's it. They're just small parts in a much bigger story about Ferengis and Wesley Crusher, and ultimately his like thoughts about how he's going to continue on, or will he continue on in Starfleet. So it even kind of dips into some of that, and you all know how that ends up too. So all in all, before we get into the full-on rant section of the video, I would say if you want something lighthearted and fun, and if you like Ferengis, and if you can handle a fair bit of pirate language, which is maybe over the top, this is a good book for you. Wesley Crusher fans, Ferengi fans, auction fans, it would be a good book for you. But don't go in expecting a kind of a high stakes adventure, with Picard and crew having to keep a super weapon out of enemy hands, because that's you kind of get right from the get-go that's not what this book is about. Like, I think the author kind of lays it right out, so you're getting into something a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more fun. So that's what you're going to get with Dafydd Hugh's Balance of Power. And I looked up online how to pronounce his name. It's Welsh, and the double D at the end is pronounced with a th. So, Dafydd. So, anyway, that was the non-spoilery section of the video. Now we're just going to kind of rant and rave as we go off and kind of hopefully try to tell you the story of what this book is about. So, the book starts out with Geordi being basically consoled. The death of one of his mentors, Dr. Zorka, has been announced. So everybody's saying, "Oh, Geordi, we're so sorry about Dr. Zorka that died." And Geordi's like, please, seriously, I really didn't like the man. You don't have to say this every 5 seconds to me. Everyone on the ship, I guess, got the wrong impression because he always kind of talked about this Dr. Zorka, but he talked about him because he was a quack, kind of in his own words, and he would come up with these ideas but never take them to fruition. So Geordi always had kind of zero confidence in him. He had maybe some good theories early in his career, but then everything else other than that was just ideas that never came to anything. But he's passed away, and the son is now going to auction off all of his goodies, all of his ideas. And for some reason, everybody in the galaxy thinks that they should come and bid on these things, even though there is no real reason to do so. That's kind of like the first thing in this book that I had to kind of get over to continue on, because it seems so silly that everyone is taking these guys' plans so seriously, even though there's no real proof in the past, however many years, of anything actually doing anything, other than him just coming up with these outrageous ideas. But anyway, there's a planet outside of Federation space where this guy is holed up and made his labs, and on the other side of the planet is a fantastic hotel, and that's where they're going to hold this big auction where all the members of important species, Ferengis, they didn't really mention too many Romulans. They focus on Ferengis, Cardassians, some Romulans are there, but the Ferengis, the Cardassians, the Federation, and the Klingon Empire are all kind of coming in to put their bids in. Now, at this point in the story, Worf and Geordi are currently working on Captain Kern's Klingon vessel. One of the things the author does here is he makes kind of a joke about the different vessels' names, and they all have these really long, kind of ridiculous names, which is kind of funny. But anyway, they're working on the vessel, kind of just to help out and improve their systems there, and that's when they find out about this auction. So everybody's kind of setting course for this auction now. The problem is there's a speed limit. So I remember in one of the episodes of TNG, they talk about if you go too fast in warp, it like ruptures the subspace or whatever. So they can't do that anymore. So there's a speed limit right now of warp 5. So everybody's got to go real slow, which means the Enterprise is not going to get there in time to get there right for the start of the auction. So they got this kind of like silly thing where Riker's all mad because he can't get there fast enough to start the auction, and there's like a bureaucratic nonsense tie up of getting the permission to go faster than warp 5. So they find a way to get around that by having Worf be the representative of the Federation, and he is. They get around that by being on Kern's ship so they can fly quickly to the auction. Then, so they go quickly to the auction, and Worf will represent the Federation there. Then Kahless for the Klingon Empire needs a good representative. He was originally going to choose Worf, but then changed his mind when Kern talked to him. So now he chooses Picard to represent the Klingon Empire at this thing. And then he pulls some strings and gets the bureaucratic nonsense to go away so the Enterprise can go warp 9 and get to the auction in time too. So now you've got all interested parties flying to this fancy hotel for the auction. And even like Counselor Troy has been called to bid on behalf of Beta Z. So everybody's kind of taking their little part here, but that's not really what the story is at all. Like that's just kind of like laying out the stage for what this is, which is a Wesley Crusher kind of hijink. He has a roommate at the academy, and he's now in his 3rd year, and this is after the tragedy when one of his kind of flight mates or whatever died when they tried to perform some stupid maneuver. But he's in his 3rd year. He has a roommate named Fred Kimball, and Fred is a genius. He can create all sorts of fantastic inventions, but he kind of never follows through with what they do. So Wesley finds Fred kind of asleep on the floor, and Fred tells him about his latest invention. Wesley looks at it and kind of finishes it and finds out that what Fred has created is a machine that will turn cesium, which is kind of like this basic metal material, into gold-pressed latinum. So now, the point what the author was trying to do with this story was to explore what would happen if this one unreplicable material, gold-pressed latinum, could be replicated. So that's what this whole thing is about. So they find that they can do this. Wesley is invited to this academy kind of secret poker game off campus somewhere that they go to. He gets an invite for Fred. They go there, and they are invited to the game with a young Ferengi named Tunk. So they're at Tunk's table, and Fred is losing and losing and losing and losing and losing, and he builds up this enormous bill, and before anyone can do anything, he owes this Ferengi like 200,000, gold-pressed latinums or whatever. So what does Fred do? Fred, in the night, after they kind of leave and everything, makes a deal with Tunk and turns over his latinum counterfeiting device in exchange for releasing him from the debt. Oh my God, what has he done? So anyway, Wesley has to sneak upon the ship, steal the thing out before Tunk gets away with it and has this incredible thing. But he gets caught in the act. So now Wesley has been captured by Tunk and his dad, Monk. And Monk talks like a pirate. Monk talks like a pirate for the whole book. So if you can't handle that, then you won't be able to handle this book. But he's a fairly big character in it, so you do get a lot of the pirate talk. It's a bit silly, but you'll get used to it eventually. So just hang in there, okay? So anyway, you got Tunk and Monk and Wesley Crusher, and basically they kind of coerce him into signing a contract to be a cabin boy or pretty much like a slave on board their ship, And they are also en route to the auction as well. So, but now, en route to this crazy auction with all these weird devices, they have a machine to counterfeit latinum. But there's a problem. They're not going to be able to make it there in time. Their ship, like the Enterprise, well, I guess it could go, if they would, they could go fast enough, but they're just a slow Ferengi cruiser, and they can't go past faster than Warp 5 to get there. Wesley gives them the genius idea of sending out a distress signal to the Enterprise and saying that their ship is about to explode. The Enterprise will have no choice but to come and rescue them, and then they can go along with the Enterprise to the auction. So the Ferengis kind of immediately agree to that, which is kind of also like a weird point in this book too. Is like, so they're just going to agree to immediately blow up their ship, but I guess again in their eyes they have like infinite money. You know, they have the device that will make the infinite money, and they're on the way to the auction where basically this guy Monk is like trying to wrest control from the Grand Nagus. And they don't ever name the Grand Nagus in this. And I guess I really didn't pay attention to the timeline too well, but I'm picturing that this is Grand Nagus Zek, of course. So when you're reading the book and you have this character in your head, it's always, that's the funnest way to do it, is you have Wallace Shawn's Grand Nagus Zek, you know, playing out that character. So, alright. We're not going to be able to get too crazy on this, because I really don't want to go into too much, because this is such a kind of a strange and weird and funny book. But suffice it to say, all parties have arrived at the auction. So anyway, when they do self-destruct their ship or whatever, they're beamed aboard the Enterprise, and then Wesley keeps up this kind of farce that he's put on with the Ferengi, that his name is not Wesley Crusher, but he is in fact Fred Kimball. And he convinces, quickly, as soon as he sees anybody on the Enterprise that knows him, he's like, "Hello, my name is Fred Kimball. How you doing?" So he's convinced them he's playing this part of Fred Kimball, and they're all kind of playing along to kind of see what happens. When in reality, he's basically AWOL from the Academy. So all parties are now arrived at the fancy hotel for the fancy auction. And you have this kind of strange situation where you have Picard representing the Klingons, Worf representing the Federation, you have Counselor Troy representing Beta Z. Initially, Data was going to be a bidder for the Federation, but then they kind of counted him out since he was an android and electronic devices could not bid or something like that. So he was sent back to the Enterprise. Riker's in command on the Enterprise, and he kind of has to stay in command because of all the different races ships that are all around there. So now the auction begins, and this is again the silly part. Everybody's bidding on all these plans for all these devices, when really I guess nobody knows for sure if any of this stuff works at all. But they agreed when they kind of signed up that irregardless they're going to pay. And that's it. So they're kind of bidding through the smaller stuff first, and they're getting to the more important and the bigger things later. And it's kind of weird. A big part of this book is kind of like auction lore. It's just the different kind of auction and these different people fighting against each other. So it's totally something I've never seen in a Trek book before, where they're having these weird auctions. And it's at this point in the story when pretty much as soon as the Ferengi get aboard the Enterprise, they take advantage of the replicators and the latinum counterfeiting device and start replicating this cesium, turning it into latinum over and over and over again. And basically they have this giant pile of gold-pressed latinum. And they just kind of repeatedly say how it's more money than anyone's ever seen before or anything like that. So they have all the counterfeit money that they need to participate in this auction. The Grand Nagus Zek is also there as well, and now they're kind of getting down to the final big ticket items. And one of the big ticket items, as we talked about on the back here, is the photon cannon, which he spells C-A-N-O-N. And I swear that's not how they spell it inside the book, but just on the back of the book. But anyway, that is the big ticket item I'm going to find that here. The big ticket item that all the people are looking to get. This crazy photonic cannon, which, according to this quack, which for some reason everybody kind of thinks knows what he's talking about, could blow right through the shields of a starship. So everybody is bidding on this like crazy. Now, Monk and Tunk, with all their counterfeit money, have basically been like slamming down and winning all of these auctions. And they've done the same thing right here at the very end. Now, this is when Wesley enacts his kind of like master plan to get himself out of trouble. So he signed this Ferengi contract, and he knows that if he goes against it, he'll be held to Ferengi law. And the Federation would even extradite him to the Ferengi. So he's got to find his way out of the contract without breaking the contract, breaking the rules of the contract. So he finds a way to do that by kind of engineering this poker game with data where he bets all of these personal items of his own that he's turned from chesium into gold pressed platinum. So through not telling him he didn't break the contract, and he's able to kind of let Data and thus the Enterprise crew know that there are counterfeiters, and then the Enterprise crew is able to kind of enact their plan to expose the counterfeiters. So, and in the end, that's how everything kind of goes down. The counterfeiters are exposed at the end by like the auction company and the Enterprise. Since Wesley was with them, he is arrested, but they're able to kind of finagle a deal with the Grand Negus and finagle a deal with the auction company. It's such a weird Trek book. We're finagling deals with people. We're doing all sorts of weird things, you know. But in the end, they're able to kind of finagle a deal. And of course, as Geordi said in the very beginning of the book, everything that this guy was selling was vaporware. It was not for real. It was just something this guy came up with in his head, but there was no real scientific, purpose behind it. Like, none of this would actually work. And when they go to test the photonic cannon or whatever, what does it do? It shoots one small green beam, and then it explodes. So they trick the Cardassians into buying it, a version off of the Grand Negus. And kind of like that's how the book actually like comes to a close, where the Cardassians are racing away with these plans worth nothing. And this guy's like ended up having to pay twice for the thing too. The Grand Negus walks away with some money. Monk and Tunk get tucked into jail, and Wesley Crusher is back off to the Academy, where he's kind of left to deal with what does he really want to do going forward. And that's kind of like where he is at. So it's just a very interesting story, very interesting kind of turn of events where you don't expect any of that really to be turning out how it does, but it's very good. So I would say if you're a Wesley fan, read it. If you want some Ferengi fun and just some good humor, read it. It's a good ride. Again, just not what I was expecting, and I'm looking to reading some more, interested in seeing some more of like what this guy does in Deep Space Nine. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's it. We're gonna stop that right here and move on to the next one. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper. And we'll see you guys in the next one.